Hi guys, Terry, can you hear me again?
Yes, I can hear you.
Could you hear me before when I did the good morning and
I heard you for a little bit, but then you dropped off.
okay, we're not sure what's happening on our speaker. So Terry, we're
Yep.
going to try to get this going again, so forgive us and hopefully they're letting us know when we drop off and we're not sure what's causing the drop off, but Terry, I'm going to let you start with the W4 and I know you've got the new W4 screen on us and up for us and let's just try to see if we can keep this going with you talking versus my speaker on my side, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks,
So,
Terry.
so I'll go ahead and start. I want to thank everyone for joining and thanking Deb and team for inviting me to this W4 webinar. I know in support we're getting a lot of questions around the W4 in 2020 and really, just I think it's changes and how we deal with that and how we educate our employees to fill out the form and what's best. So I thought I'd cover some of the W4 and my blog that I'm sure most of you have seen. If you haven't, we'll go through it and then Deb can send out the link later if you have not seen it. And then I'll maybe just talk about some of the questions we're getting in support, and then we can open it up for any Q&A that you may have as well about the W4. So this is basically the W4 form here that you have in front of me. In my blog, what I did is I pasted pieces of the W4 and how it correlates to GP. So we might just kind of focus on my blog right here and go through each step on the W4 and talk about it and make sure we understand it and how we coded it and why we coded it in that fashion for these changes. So for there's really two pieces to this. When Deb installs, I must have logged out of GP there. When Deb installed the year-end update, that's one piece to this. So I'll log in here to my GP. So at year-end, you received an update that contained information that changed under cards payroll tax. Just see. And so that was one piece of it because we added a new field in that window under cards payroll tax. Then when you installed the 2020 tax tables, that was another piece of it because it gave you all those new filing statuses that you saw in the drop down. And we see like married hire, head of household, and head of household hire, single hire. Those are all new with the 2020 tax tables. So there's really two pieces. So if you installed the year-end update but hadn't installed the 2020 tax tables, people weren't seeing all those new drop downs. I'm assuming you have both installed by now because we're going on to March of 2020. So that's two pieces of it. So for step one, the personal information, pretty basic. There is no more exempt on there that you can't mark exempt, but they say you're supposed to write exempt across the form and send it in if you have exempt employees. So let's go to step two because that one is new to us. So what they were saying is, if I have multiple jobs, maybe I work at a place some weekends and in the evening. So I have another job that typically I don't make much money on that job and no taxes are getting taken out. So then at the end of the year, I have to pay in. So what step two allows you to do is they split out the tax tables and they have a standard tax table and a higher tax table. So if at any time the employee marks step two on their W4, when we go to cards payroll tax, we always want to choose the higher option for the filing status. Just that's kind of a rule with step two. So if I go in here into GP and I'm going to go under tax and I'll pull up my employee Ackerman. So anytime it says higher withholding, married higher withholding, single higher withholding, if ever I mark step two, you want to choose the higher withholding because that will go to those higher tax tables and withhold more money from the employees. So for example, on the W4, if I'm married today and I'm on a 2019 W2 or W4, I stay married. You don't change me until I fill out a 2020 W-4. I had that question the other day. Some of their employees had filled out the 2020 W-4, but not everybody, and she was noticing tax changes. She's like, should I change everybody's? You do not change anything in this window till the employee fills out a W-4. So an employee is not required to fill out a 2020 form, but you can ask them to fill one out, but you cannot change this till they fill it out. So I could be sitting on a, let's say, married, and I could have 11 exemptions in here on a 2019 W-4.
So Terry, great point on the making sure you get a new updated form, right? One of the big questions that I've been hearing from employers is, Pilar has those 11 exemptions. She just wants to increase her withholding by, the additional withholding by another $50. How does she do that when she would really have to fill out a new form? Can she update a 2019 form?
I guess mine would say no. I would say you'd have to fill out the 2020 W-4.
Right. Then she's on the 2020, and we all know that 11 can't be in the exemption box for a 2020 form.
Correct. So
Yep. See, that's the stuff that I'm getting now.
Yep. So in your example, let's just say that she wanted to bump, that she filled out a 2020 W-4. She's still married. So if you go to my notes on the side of the window here, so married filing jointly has 3 exemptions. So this needs to then go to a 3 because there is no more exemptions on the W-4. That's, I think, what's confusing too. But why we do this is because in the instructions on the T15, it says that we just don't have them built into the table, but it says you can have, if you're married, you have 3. So you have to do 3, because I'm on the 2020 W-4.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to bump, let's say she bumped it up to 100. So that's how the window would look once she filled out a 2020 W-4.
And I think where they're really getting confused is that they know what rolled over from 2019 without filling out new ones, that married in 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm with you on that married in 11, but that married table, 3 to 11, so we really should be on the new table now, right? But the married and married with hire, I think that's where we're just seeing some confusion, and maybe people need to, once they start getting some more of those, again, do some test runs, make sure, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep, and things we're seeing, like I'll get W-4 examples and they're like, gosh, it's not withholding any taxes, and mm-hmm. What I've seen on some of them is, employees are just filling out randomly, and especially that dependent claim amount. They might put in whatever, let's just say 15,000 in here, not right. even really knowing what it means on the W-4, just filling it out. Then the payroll person puts that in there, and then no taxes are coming out. So be, very careful when you have the dependent claim. That I have seen, if they're putting large amounts just because they don't understand, it does bring it down, and it probably won't take out any taxes. So be careful with that, and maybe you have to go back to them and explain, this is the calculation. Do we really want that in the field?
Right, good point, because that dependent claim amount is definitely, I know a lot of our employers are struggling with even just helping, even sending them to the calculator, Terry. I think that calculator is really putting most people in okay, now we're doing more tax than we really want to do with our employees, where, for them completing, the step 1 and step 5, I think everybody's got a good handle on, single, yep. Married, or head of household. When we get into 2 and 3, those are the really dicey one. 4 to me is more like what we usually do. Like if Pilar wants that extra 100, I'm going to be putting that in here. But when we get that step 3, is that an annual amount? Is that a per paycheck amount for dependent claim? I'm confused on it, to tell you the truth, Terry. And that's never good.
Okay, so let's talk about that. One thing I do want to show you on this window, and just remember when you're filling it in, if ever you choose hire, any of the hires, always zero this out, and remember that because they're choosing hire and mark step 2, think of it as we want to hold the most taxes we can, so they shouldn't get any exemptions. So always remember, whenever you do any of the higher filing statuses, zero out the exemptions because they don't get any with any of the higher options.
Perfect. Perfect. That helps us, right? That does help us. So if they check the checkbox in 2, that should always be 0, right?
Yeah. Yep. And we will not do it for you automatically. That's something you have to change when you're in that window.
Right. Right.
So let's look at this dependent claim. And I'm working on a new blog of just how GP calculates taxes because we haven't written one in a while. And I'm adding this field in there. So I will send that out to Deb probably in the next week. I'm giving some examples of how GP calculates taxes and frequencies that come into play. But let's talk about this dependent claim amount. So in this article, so for taxes, as you know, we annualize everything. And this new field reduces your year-to-date tax withheld. So like an exemption reduces your taxable wages, right? This new field reduces your year-to-date tax withheld. So where does that fall in our calculation example? So I annualize everything out. Once we get down to the part of the calculation where we have figured out Terry's yearly withheld for the payroll. So let's just say my yearly withheld for the year is $6,000. I'm a weekly payroll. I divide that by 52, which would give me $124.28 of federal tax each week. So with this new field, let's say I have $1,500 in the field dependent claim amount. Now the other day, it was interesting. It was an internal engineer working with me, and she's like, where did you get 500 times 3? And she was taking exemptions, like 3 exemptions times 3, that 4,000 number. I'm like, no, look at the step 3 right here on the W4. It says multiply the number of qualifying children by 2,000 or 500. So I used a 500 example, and I had 3. I put a 3 here, so right here on this total for 3 would be 1,500. That's where I got that amount. So I'm not sure if any of you, and I'll try to clarify that, but it's not 3 times your exemptions. It's 3 times one of these amounts in step 3 to get the total amount. So I said I have 3, so 500 times 3 is 1,500. So I take the yearly tax withheld, 64 there, minus the 1,500, and this is going to happen every payroll, equals the 49.62. Then I divide it by 52. Now my tax is 95.43. So where my tax before the 1,500 was 124, now that 1,500 gets reduced, and I'm at 95.43. So you can see where if I get some really whacked out numbers in this dependent claim amount, how it can quickly reduce my federal tax to nothing.
So then, Terry, what do you actually fill in the field? That's one of my bigger questions from the field is, what do I put in there? I mean, we love the blog, we do, but I think they're still really confused as far as like, okay, and the amount. So I see my total, okay, like my 1,500. Would I actually put the 1,500 in, or do I put the difference between the 124 and the 95.43 in that field for the employee?
You should put the 1,500 in.
The 1,500. So whatever they fill in the form, right? And I know employers hate trying to help with this form because it to me is like that. Okay, that's the back page. That yeah. Now it's the front page. It's step 3. How do they know if it's an other dependent or a qualifying child? How do they know the difference in that step? I know I'm asking the hard questions. They keep asking me them.
That's not a GP question, Deb.
I know, I'm so sorry. But it seems, I mean, I know the IRS has done an amazing job on this form trying to really make it as complicated as possible for us all. So to me, if I have my 5 kids at home, are they in the 500 or are they by 2,000? I mean, that's really where I think it gets dicey. And maybe that's where all of our employers need to be able to jump out to that IRS website and look at the difference between those two and find out which one they really fall into.
Right. And I mean, it should, what do they want to advise them, or should they advise the employee to go talk to their accountant, and what would be best for them in their overall, tax planning?
Right, right,
But I have seen W-4 sent to me that have 20 and 30,000 in that dependent claim amount. Even, and that's just to me too much that it's going to bring it down and not even take any taxes.
right. Which everyone knows right now, as we just produced a beautiful set of W-2s, all the questions that come in as we have W-2s, and the last thing that we want is to have somebody come in at, after we pushed out our 2020 W-2s and have no federal tax, and now they have a huge tax burden because of a form issue, right? So guys, everybody, we really need to be helping employees, I think, make sure that we don't have 20,000 in that field, because those things really, they're really hard at W-2 season.
Exactly. And like I've seen a W-4, I'm just throwing out examples. I've seen a W-4 that has, 7210 in the dependent claim field. Well, to me, that's not right. One, that's not a multiplier of this over here on the right, and it's not right. So, I think we all get that, but it's just advise them if they are putting something really different in there that maybe that's not correct, and we need to review that, because your tax is going to be really low and then you're going to have to owe at the end of the year.
Great, great.
To me,
Okay.
it's all not a game, but it's just all manipulation of numbers and how we really want them to come out at the end.
Right. So far, Terry, I mean, I want people to realize that new W-4 is something the IRS put out. And I think a lot of people were really thinking that, oh, it's a form change, right? But it is a big form change. And your single, married, filing jointly, or head of household checkboxes up in step 1 is really where you start. But when you get into step 2, if they check the checkbox in step 2, then you're automatically at higher. Then getting them through the claim dependence, right?
Yep.
Putting in the amount that they fill in step 3, and then any additionals in step 4. I mean, really, when we break it down, as we're not helping them say, okay, here's how much you're going to owe next year in tax. We're basically helping them fill out the form that then is going to be able to help us put the correct information in the boxes.
Yes, exactly. And about step 4 a little bit, I have gotten a little heat on that, like, why isn't there step 4A for extra income and for B? And when we originally looked at these changes, not really knowing how it's going to impact everybody, for us to add a field to this tax window right here that says Terry's earning extra income and add that into her payroll and go calculate tax, it was going to be a lot of work for us. And honestly, we didn't think a lot of people would fill that out, and it would really slow down our tax engine. So we didn't want to, one, if these changes aren't going to stick, which they may not, after they come out, and if they're not going to stick and many aren't going to use it, we didn't want to put it in and slow down everybody's payroll. So that's kind of just some background of why we didn't do it to begin with, and kind of use, like Deb said, that additional holding field for those amounts, because we can adjust their taxes based on that for those different fields, than making new fields that maybe won't be used. I did log a suggestion on that people can vote on if it's something they really want to see changed, and we can look at it in the future. But when we were just trying to get our W-4 out there and what we needed minimally, we chose not to do it at this time. Is there any question? Well, I'm not sure if we can open it up. Deb, I can't hear you again.
Okay, how about now, Terry?
Yep,
Better?
I can hear. Yep.
Okay. Sorry, we're not sure what's causing our issues. We're thinking something on GoToWebinar, so guys, forgive us. And we have this recording, so hopefully if some of you have to jump off, I know we had this scheduled for the half hour, but if some of you have to jump off, the recording will be there as well. So forgive us for having that little bit of technical at the beginning. I think the biggest thing, Terry, what I am seeing with people too, is let's say Pilar was on that 2019 W-4, right? As we upgraded, she moved over to the new tax tables. But she's still using her 2019 W-4. Is that really going to give her a lot of issues because a married in 11 versus a married in 3? You know, is she going to be in trouble when it comes to tax? And I know right now I've got a lot of employers that are doing some comparatives, like, okay, they're out, you know, my wife's company, they switched over to this and there's a huge difference. You know, I've been sending people back to Paycheck City to try to get, again, some better comparatives, because if you have some that are staying on old and some that are staying on new. And I know at GPUC, a lot of our employers said, we're going to hang out on the old, you know, get through, let it kind of shake out, see how things go, and we're going to hang out on the old. But as soon as you start hiring new employees, you're now into the new, whether you want to or not, right?
That's correct. Yes. Any new employee that started in 2020 must fill out 2020 W-4.
Yep. Yep.
And
So
yeah, we have to remember as well that, you know, we only have one tax table, right? So even if I didn't fill out a W-4, and I think this has come up, you know, and your taxes changed. Yes, it will change because there is new tax tables for 2020 that everybody got. So everybody got a new tax table and everybody's using that no matter what their W-4 is. It's just kind of how many exemptions are they claiming, and they don't get the higher tax bracket that is out there now until they fill out the W-4.
Right, right. And this is a good time too to be talking to your employees, of course, right? Because they're all getting their taxes done. Hopefully they're getting their taxes done. And at this point too, being able to put some of these out there and say, okay, you know, especially if people are having tax issues where they have that spouse that has a second job, they may have a second job, being able to understand the difference in the tax and possibly doing some what if scenarios, doing a calculation for them. Remember, you can make a change in their tax, right? Not a permanent change until they fill out a form, of course, but you can make a change in their tax, run through pre-check, right? Just for them, run through pre-check, you would get their new tax amount. So that way you can see the effect. They can understand that effect before, okay, now we're making this mass change. You have 1,000 people payroll. Everybody now is really worried, because that's what we are hearing, is that people are worried that either the payroll people aren't doing it right, they don't understand the form enough to make good decisions. They do not want to be tax preparers, and I am completely with you. I do not want to be a tax preparer either. I would much rather have my employees go and talk to someone that's way more qualified than myself on any tax planning. And I think really as they're starting to prep and get their taxes done, to make sure that they understand what is happening with this form, and hopefully those professionals as well are able to give them that good solid guidance of, you should be doing this and you should be doing this, and helping them with that form. Maybe it's something to right now, being able to push those forms up to employees, having them available at certain areas, and start having those discussions. Terry, I think I'm gonna say, I think we can open it up for questions. Brandon, I know you're helping us with the question box here. So guys, if you want to go ahead and put questions in, put questions into the question panel, things that you're seeing from your employees, things that, you know, you're worried about at being an employer, making sure that it's right. So Terry, what I've gotten is, my rule so far is, if somebody's on hire, exemptions is 0. Okay, that's my first rule that I'm learning, and I want everybody to get that rule. Okay, no matter what hire they're doing, they're on a 0.
Yep.
If they're just married, right? They're just married, they're going to be a 3.
Yep. And
Not
in
a
that
1. Yep.
example, you know, like I'm married, I always filed 0, you know, for me, because we want the most taxes taken, right? But my understanding is, if I did fill out a new W-4, I can't be married in 0. I have to put a 3 in here per the 15T instructions.
Okay, so Terry, great point, because what we're seeing and I think it was Leanne from one of our companies that's saying, hey, I'm trying to put somebody to married and I'm trying to put a 0 in. And she's like, it's not taking my 0. It's not keeping it. Is that because really she shouldn't be a married in 0, or is that really just the form blanking it out? What are you seeing on that one, Terry?
Well, I think we still allow, like, I can have married in 0. We still allow it to save, but They should be putting, if I filled out a 2020 W-4, they should be married in 3.
Married in 3. Okay, so everybody got that, right? And now when I look at if I'm single, single should be a 2, right?
Yep.
Again, if they're on new 2020 W-4, it's a 2 or a 3. That's what I'm hearing. A 2 or a 3. My only choice is, unless I'm higher, then I'm a 0.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so I think we almost need a cheat sheet, Terry. But I love the fact you've got my little cheat sheet going for me here. But guys, this might be one that you want to take and put on your note window too at the bottom. So Terry, hit your note there down at the very bottom of your window. So that way, as you're doing these, because if you're like me, I'm constantly overthinking when I'm on this window. And so you want to just put those notes that make it right, that make, when you look at it, make it make sense, right? If they're this, then always this. If they're this, so it's a 3, 2, or 0. 3 for married hire, 2 for single hire or head of household, or just a married is always a 0. I'm hoping I'm saying it right.
Yep.
Okay. So add those into your notes, guys. Don't forget about that. And that's the bottom note, like Terry's got right there. Okay. Because then that way, whoever opens up the form, this is 2020. This is it. This is all they get. Okay. Brandon's got a couple questions.
There are a few questions in there. First one here from Ruth. Are the same number of exemptions entered for the state tax? Please confirm where that amount is answered.
Ruth.
Or entered, excuse me.
Ruth, great question. Terry, what are you seeing that states are doing? I know that's always dicey.
Yep, that's a very good question. I'm glad you brought that up, because some of the people are saying to us, well, why didn't you add the dependent claim amount field on these state forms? You know, I think North Dakota files with the W-4 federal form, so why aren't you doing that? So let me try to explain it. So even though the states may say that I'm using the federal W-4, their tax tables don't have that. So we verified every state, and if a state really needed that dependent claim amount, you know, we would have looked at doing something, but they don't. But let's just look at, so when we go to Tools, Setup System, Payroll Tax, I'm just going to bring you into our tax table so I can see. So like North Dakota, for example, it subtracts personal exemptions. So if I pull over, so you can see here, head of household hire, which is a new one. The state of North Dakota said there are no exemptions for that one. So in our tax tables, even if you would have put a 3 on head of household, it wouldn't have taken anything because we don't have anything in this field right here. But if we look at married, 4,300, we still have it, similar to federal. The higher ones don't have it. So in these examples, when you choose higher, they don't even have the exemptions in here. So that's kind of a safety guard that it's not taking any exemptions. But single still would have those exemptions in there. So I think it varies really on the state. Each one is a little different, but we have verified, and that's the problem with the W-4s. You know, even in the states, they issue tax tables and the filing statuses don't match what they have on their state W-4. So we really have to be careful. But as far as I know Colorado was another one that said there was some concern there with Colorado, because what Colorado did this year is they have married is an 8,000 exemption and single is a 4. So they say they follow the federal W-4, but in their tax tables, they said single gets a 4,000 exemption and married gets an 8. So that's how they have it in their tax tables. So we had to look at both. So it kind of varies on the state, but you should be able to use the Cards Payroll State Tax window and fill it out. And you know, if they follow federal, usually it's the 4,300, but I think Colorado was one where they went off on their tax tables and said married gets 8,000, single gets 4, which really doesn't match the federal W-4. That's where it gets, I think, kind of confusing.
And Terry, I think too, another really good point, as I look at your tax table back there, you've got your 120 date or 1/17/2020 date. I'm going to say it wrong, Brandon. You know I am. It's kind of my day. I was looking at your tax updates and your tax code updates. So just guys, make sure that get your tax updates applied. Last year we had, I want to say 4 companies that somehow missed one of the tax updates. So we want to make sure that we get those tax updates applied. If you have trouble with them, trouble getting them applied, let us know. It is seriously, it is minutes for us to help you with it and making sure that those are applied. You won't see these new tables that Terry has until those are applied. Terry, am I saying it right?
Yep. And now that you say that, Deb, I do want to call. So we did see how my date is 2/28. I released a tax table yesterday that just had changes for Arkansas and Oregon. There was a correction in Oregon. So that's why mine is 2/28, which many of you may not have. But I do want to show you something because we did have an issue with our federal table when we first came out. So I'm going to show you. If you had an employee that has any of these higher options and you notice that it is taking out way less tax, when we first released our tax tables on the right here where it says standard deduction, the IRS was not clear about is that included in the table or not. And we had some standard deductions in here. And so anyone with the higher option would see a lot less tax. We have since removed them. So you can see here, they're all zeroed out. So make sure that you just either go apply it, like Deb said, then you know you're on the latest and greatest. And this was changed, I think, on January 9th, January 8th or 9th, we uploaded a new tax table. So if you installed it, let's say December 31st and haven't touched it again, you may have that issue. So we want to make sure that these standard deductions are blank on any of the higher statuses, because we did have amounts in there which really reduced their taxes.
Okay, Brandon's got more questions.
Couple more
for us,
questions. Okay, so this one's here from Philip. It seems like if you select the higher, the exemptions box doesn't even do anything. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct. And why it really doesn't do anything, because if we choose federal here and filing status, we did put a precautionary thing in here like head of, head of household hire. See how I have it 0 there? I do have these boxes marked, but it won't do anything because I have 0 here. Now, if I had $5, it would take $5. And we could see here with all these higher ones, I've zeroed it out. So we did go through the tax tables and zero them all out as a safety guard on the higher filing statuses.
Great, thank you. A couple here, and Deb, this one might be more directed at you.
Uh-oh.
So,
uh-oh.
Deadwood's issue was married filing jointly, so they should have been married WH, high withholding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Correct. Right. If they mark the box in step 2, that's how I'm going to say they're higher. Okay. If they don't mark that box in step 2, then they're going to be, Terry, tell me if I'm wrong, if they're up on C and they say single or married jointly, or head of household, that's box C, right? Up on the top on step 1 on when I look at my W4. If they're saying jointly there, but not checking the box in 2, what do I do at that point?
Well, I think their filing status would be married then, right?
That's what I'm really wondering, because I'm still thinking up on the top, these are still the single, married, head of household. The higher is that checkbox, okay? I'm probably making it worse for everybody, just so you know, I'm in the same boat with everybody else, trying to make sure I'm doing it right. And that's the key. Okay.
And what if Deb, if I marked single or married, did not mark the box, what do you feel my would be under cards payroll tax?
I'm thinking you're going to be single or married. That's what I'm thinking, but are you thinking you're going to be single there?
Yeah, I was thinking single.
Okay.
Just because I want to withhold more tax, or withhold at the single tax table.
Okay.
So then for Deadwood, it would automatically be 0 for exemptions, right?
So if they're on they're not doing the higher, they're not doing higher, then everything else becomes married, family, jointly, single or head of household, the 3, the 2, or the 0. Okay, this is where it gets dicey. Okay, let's go back to the question, Terry. Okay,
Okay.
Brandon, give it to us again.
So, so Deadwood's issue was married filing jointly. So they should have been married WH, right?
Married, and then exemptions then would be 0.
That would, yep. So then Deadwood would automatically be 0 for exemptions, right? Yes, yes.
Okay, wait, no, Terry, that's a 3 then.
Yeah, did they mark box 2?
Yeah, did they mark box 2? So they're married, we know they're married, right?
Yes, box 2 is marked.
If they mark box 2, then they're married higher.
Yep.
Okay. And if they're married and they're higher, they're always a 0.
Yep.
Hires are 0. Regular marrieds are 3 and singles are 2. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm getting
Yep.
it. I just got to
You
keep
got
going
it.
between the 3 and 0, 3 or 2.
And it's fun reading these chats as I'm, so she says perfect. So excellent. Excellent. Okay. Actually, another really good question.
Okay.
How do we verify the version of the tax table, which one they have?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, back to the tax screen, that tax table setup screen where Terry was on. It says right there at the top of that screen, the last tax update. Terry has her set right now to 228 because she took the one yesterday. A lot of you would be on the end of January one. And Terry, forgive me, but I think it's 1/20/2020 or 1/17/2020.
Let me look here. So on my tax page, it was, yep, 1/17/2020. You were right.
They're all blending together at this point. So, and I did have, so my North Dakota people, okay, I think North Dakota and Minnesota had some changes in the last couple. So I had some employees say, hey, how come my taxes changed? It's like, well, we take the tax updates, right? So make sure, right, as you're I mean, usually at year end, most employees are like, okay, yep, we're getting new tax tables, taxes change, right? Depending upon when you take that tax table update, everything does roll over, right? Like Terry talked about married. If you were married in 11, you're still married in 11. However, we did, like for us, we took a couple different tax updates between end of year and then the ones in January. And that's where some of our employees were seeing a little bit of tax difference, okay? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I see an error on that page. I have 1/28. It needs to be February there.
Yep.
Get that changed. But I would say if your date is still 12/20, I would take a tax update so you're on at least 1/17 or later, because then you got all these other states in here as well.
Right, and that's where the North Dakota one came in, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing because some people are like, well, North Dakota didn't have an update. Well, if Terry is still getting a Q4 type update that maybe didn't get in the end of year one, the one that we take in November, we may see it in January. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Terry, but I know some people were like, okay, when does it actually have the effect? So that 12/20/19, if we didn't pick it up as an employer at 12/20, maybe we got it in the second payroll, we weren't ready for it yet. That's where I think it gets somewhat confusing for employees as they're thinking there shouldn't be a change. It's like, well, we didn't take that change at 12/20, we took it at 1/17.
Correct.
Okay, and definitely, I know the big thing too, employees are concerned about being switched over to those new W-4s, and it's like, no changes happen on W-4s without an employee signature and an employee form. So if some people will say, well, we want to just move everybody over. That definitely is not correct. Make sure that you're going through and helping them with the form and getting that form completed. New employees for sure will be on the new form. Okay. Brandon, what else do you got over there? I know you got lots.
One comment. This must need to be verified through SA. Do you need a certain credential to do that?
Yeah, you may. It's a system table.
Okay.
You may need SA to get you into that table.
Okay.
Okay. Or a system password, one of the two. Scott here can check yours. If you're worried at all, have Scott check it before he runs it. So, you know, if you want to know what were we at, what are we going to be at, right? Maybe you are still sitting at the 1220 table, you know, the 117, and you won't stop at the 117 now, you'll be sitting at the 228 table. And it will tell you, like right now, everybody should be saying, yep, we'll take that update, right? And that will update all companies, guys. That's not like you have to put it in and then put it into each one. Once you put a tax update in, that goes across all companies, not like a tax code update that we do in December, first part of January, okay? It's like Terry's running hers here.
So it should tell me I have it installed, I'm thinking, but, well, maybe it'll run it again.
Gonna run it. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, if it knows it's already installed, perfect. The big thing I see with a lot of end users, you have to have administrative rights to do those. Some of you might have to right click on your icon and say run as admin, even to be able to get the tax engine to run, okay? You have to be in as an SA user as well because you're updating SQL tables. Okay. But again, all this is doing is updating the table information. The employee information is exactly as it was in December and October, unless you have started going in with new forms, putting those new forms in and then the new amounts in. Okay, questions, guys. Have we made it any easier? Because I think what we found at GPUC was everybody was in the mode in November of, yeah, we're just gonna see how it goes. And you know, it's kind of like 1095s until the shock of having to actually do them the first time was like, yeah, we're just gonna wait and see if it goes away. I don't think this is going away. And definitely as you're hiring new people, you have to be ready for this form and understanding it, because I know a lot of our big payrolls said, you know, we need to help people. This is hard. This is very confusing for them. And I agree that the tax calculator is not making it any easier. But it's about really getting them to the right information so that they have the correct withholding, right? That makes happy employees at W-2 season. And happy to me is when I hear somebody had to either pay in or had a refund of $1. That means that things were done right, right? That dollar is a good thing. If it's $1 million refund, I'm thinking, oh, that maybe something wasn't right all along, or $1 million pay in. That's never good either. Okay, other questions you guys have? I know we're running a little bit late. Terry, thanks so much. You always help us so much explain these things to employers, and our payrolls absolutely love you. Brandon, any other questions in our little chat box you got going over there?
I do not believe so. I'm just going through it again here. No, it doesn't look like it.
Perfect. Good. And I know, Brandon, I think today is your last day for early bird sign up for GPUC, correct?
That is correct.
Early bird sign up ends today, guys. If you haven't gotten your company signed up for GPUC, you know, November's, I'm going to say it, right around the corner. we're barely getting those 1095s out of here, but we're doing it. So I know a lot of you are still working on that March 4th filing deadline for getting those last 1095s out. And really, I know, Terry, there is so much in the October release for payroll that, you know, look, guys, for another webinar coming soon. As soon as we get it on the calendar on those new features, we were just letting all of our payrolls kind of get through year end. But we definitely want to start training more on the new features, because Terry, you got so much into that release. It's fun for me as an end user.
Well, thank you. I'm excited too. And, you know, right now that Deb brought it up, we are looking for, this is the feature blog series that we did and all the features we had in here. And here were some of the HR and payroll ones. But we are now taking suggestions for our next release, which will come out in fall of 2020. So we are working on our next release of GP. And so if you have some suggestions, I'd take some easier payroll ones. I know there was one that came up at our sessions at year end about maximums. And so we're looking at that, but these were the ones we got into that fall release. And the workflow for the system enhancements has gone over really well. People like that.
I think that's a big one. If you haven't gotten into some workflows, that system one, you will be excited to see that one. And Brandon, get that one on our calendar too, to do another webinar and have the super smart people do that one. Not me on that one, because you know I have too much to do on payroll right now, guys. But that's really the fun part. But yeah, November too, guys, we are looking for definitely, I know they're putting sessions together right now for November for GPUC. So if you have something too that you say, gosh, if we could just have this, right? I will tell you, one of the big things that people have been asking for is to take those 2-hour sessions and make them into 4-hour sessions on that that third day. I'm not sure yet if I'm all the way there yet, so definitely feedback is always helpful. Oh, Brandon's got the question flag going again, Terry.
Couple of just final things. One is how do we get access to watch this video again?
Okay.
Well, one, since you've signed up, as soon as it's available, you will automatically be notified with an email to the link to the recording.
Yep.
We'll also have it where you can always access it on our website as well as our YouTube channel there. So generally speaking, we usually have that to you within, you know, by the next business day, if not sooner.
Right. And I think the big thing too, Brandon, is that first few minutes of technical difficulty, they'll block that off.
Let's talk to Chelsea about that.
They'll get that off there, so you'll start right where we're actually, you know, we started. So you won't have that little bit of dead space. But definitely, if you have others in your organization that need help with this, let us know. We definitely can jump on and do more on it. It is confusing, and we have been seeing the payroll people really get bombarded with questions on this, and I completely understand.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, can we please share a link, Terry, to your blog or show how we access it?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, Terry's blogs are great.
Seems quite informative, and would love to follow. So.
Yeah, I don't know if I put that in the chat or I'll hit send all, or but I'll send it to Deb and Brandon too, so they have it and they can send it out.
Perfect. Good. So yeah, guys, if you need more information on any of this, let us know. If you need more information on getting signed up for GPUC, let us know. I know Brandon's got tons of people right now trying to get their signups done for early birds. They don't miss out on the best discount that we're going to offer this year is during early bird. And Terry, thanks so much. You always do an absolutely wonderful job for us and for the community. We absolutely love it, and we love the knowledge that you bring to us. So thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great Friday.
Thanks so much. Happy Friday, everyone. Bye-bye.